As I said, back from holidays, went to Holland, visited relatives, went to London. And funnily enough, when I landed there, I didn't get the big spiel that Qantas gives when it lands in Sydney or Melbourne. You know, we acknowledge the traditional owners of this land and so on and so on. All that race stuff that makes you feel like a stranger in your own country. So I thought, going back to Holland, homeland of my parents, I'd at least get my turn at this race game. But not at all. I didn't get, we honour the elders, past and present, of the traditional Dutch tribes of this land. Or landing in Britain, didn't get, we honour the elders, past and present, of the Celtic tribes of Britain. Because that, of course, would be racist, wouldn't it? It wouldn't be welcoming to all the immigrants flooding there now. And to rub it in, when it was in London, I walked past the Australian High Commission, which is our top diplomatic post there, and found it was flying almost any flag except the Australian one. It's like we're ashamed to say that we're actually one country and one people. I took a photo, not a very good photo, excuse this. I was so surprised, you see. Our High Commission was instead flying 13 flags, and just one of them was the Australian national flag, just one. But there were 2 Aboriginal flags, 2 Torres Strait Islander flags, 2 Ukrainian flags. We actually flew more Ukrainian flags than Australian ones at the Australian High Commission. There are also 2 pride flags for everyone who isn't straight, and 4 state flags, 2 wrapped around the flagpole so you couldn't actually see what states they were. It was amazing. Our diplomats in London are shouting to the world that we're a nation of tribes divided by race or gender identity. We're not one people at all. I mean, tell you what, Greens leader Adam Bandt would be pleased by that display. Remember, of course, he's the guy who refuses to show the Australian flag at his press conferences, is so ashamed of his country.
You chose not to stand in front of the Australian flag. Why is that?
Well, I think we've got a lot of work to do in this country to tell the truth. We've got a lot of work to do to overcome the racism and dispossession that many First Nations and Torres Strait Islander and Indigenous people face. We should start to fly the First Nations flags in Parliament.
And now coming back home, I see that this campaign to divide us by race is catching on fast. The Wallabies, our national rugby union team, before its game against England on Saturday, sang the first half of our national anthem in an Aboriginal language, Ugambe. Now again, how does that unite us? Ugambe is just one of more than 200 Aboriginal languages. In fact, just 4 people in the entire country speak it. 4, according to the 2016 census. So there's no way that a language like that could possibly unite us like English can, and once did. And then there's this from the supposedly Liberal government of New South Wales. It says it's now going to permanently fly the Aboriginal flag on the Sydney Harbour Bridge, replacing the New South Wales flag that represents not one race, but the whole state. That's Australia today. Scrap what unites us and promote what divides. Race, race, race. The ABC is right behind this push. Here is one of its Radio National hosts who describes herself as a Canadian Taiwanese Australian with what she treats as a serious suggestion. One that an Aboriginal guest she has thinks, well, it's not a bad idea if you're for a white person who for the first time is meeting someone who identifies as Aboriginal.
And Andrew texts in, hello, as an ally, when I meet a First Nations person, I apologise to them for the land theft and genocide that my forebears profited from in the 1800s and that I continue to benefit from through my life here. I can't give the land back as my families no longer own it, but it is important to acknowledge and apologise for these past injustices. Annie Manuel, what do you think about that kind of apology when meeting a First Nations person? Is that allyship to you?
Yeah, that's one part of allyship, and not everyone has to do it. It's just if you feel inclined to do that, then I think that's okay.
I mean, seriously. My forebears back then in the 1800s, they were in Holland. None of my relatives stole land. None committed genocide. They were too busy chasing pigs or working as servants. And nor did I steal land or commit genocide. So I am not apologising to anyone. And the only people who say I should must be racist, judging me by my race, saying that as a white, I'm somehow tainted by all the crimes of any white they can think of, including whites I have never met and who are long dead. And again I ask, how does any of this nonsense build unity?